Welcome to What the Fuck Just Happened. I'm your host, Liz Enton. If you listen to the intro, you know my story. If not, here's a brief summary. I'm a sciencey skeptic, and when my dad died, I took a shot in the dark and decided to investigate if there was any possible evidence of an afterlife. I assumed that was as realistic as Santa Claus, but I was desperate. However, I was so blown away by what I discovered that I wrote a book and launched this podcast. In this podcast, I will be talking to some fairly normal people about some really weird shit. I speak with everyone from psychic mediums and afterlife researchers to ordinary people who've had some inexplicable experiences. So come, listen. There's no need to draw any final conclusions. Keep an open mind and wonder, what the fuck just happened? This is going to be a slightly different episode today. I don't have a guest. I am just going to kind of fill you in on a few housekeeping notes and announce a big contest that we are doing. First of all, you may have noticed we are now publishing a new episode weekly, and you can find our newest episode every Thursday wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, each guest is now going to be a full episode. I will no longer be dividing them into part 1 and part 2. So we are going to do, through What the Fuck Just Happened, the What the Fuck Just Happened $1 Million Challenge of Gilead. You might have heard of Randi's $1 Million Challenge. And if you haven't, essentially the stage magician James Randi posed a $1 million challenge for anyone who makes claims of psychic, mediumship, remote viewing, any inexplicable psi-based abilities, and he offered them $1 million if they proved these abilities. Nobody won. There are a lot of thoughts behind that. I will, down the line, probably do a full episode on this Randi's $1 Million Challenge. In the meantime, we have addressed it briefly in some of my previous episodes. I discussed James Randi with Darren McEnany of Seeking Eye in podcast episode 8, The Evidence That Convinced Two Skeptics There Is an Afterlife. Lloyd Auerbach also has a lot of knowledge about Randi's $1 Million Challenge, and he discusses it with us, with Darren and I, in episode 14, The Blue Lady of the Moss Beach Distillery, with parapsychologist Lloyd Auerbach. Also, if you want to know more about it, you can read a book called Randi's Prize by Robert McLaurin. At this point, it is no longer going on. Unfortunately, Randi did pass away about 2 years ago, I believe, and the contest was stopped. There is a second contest worth mentioning that was proposed earlier this year, or actually, last year in 2021, by Robert Bigelow. He is the founder of the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies. He offered prizes for the best essays demonstrating that we do survive bodily death. And the first prize was $500,000. Second prize was $300,000, and the third prize was $150,000. And there were quite a few other lower level prizes offered. And there were winners. Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove won the first prize. Dr. Pim Van Lommel won the second prize. And Dr. Leo, I am so sorry, I'm going to pronounce his name incorrectly, I believe, but Dr. Leo Rookby won the third prize. So now, I don't know how many of you have been following what goes on in our politics here in the United States. I know we have some listeners in different countries, but we primarily have some in the United States. And I think this is really important to address because this podcast is about consciousness, spirituality, when consciousness begins, does it begin, what happens when it ends. So we are now offering the $1 million challenge of Gilead. If anyone can offer valid scientific evidence that consciousness begins at conception in a peer-reviewed study. And to clarify, anyone who might be absolutely convinced that consciousness is created the second there is conception, I just want to clarify for you that peer-reviewed does not mean read by your peers. It's actually an official scientific term. So we at What the Fuck Just Happened will offer anyone who can submit paper, evidence, data, studies that proves scientifically, not belief based, beyond a reasonable doubt that consciousness begins at conception. In a peer reviewed study, you will get $1 million. If you believe that you have demonstrated or know of a study that demonstrates beyond a reasonable doubt that consciousness begins at conception to the point that a law should be passed forcing half of the women in our country to live by this law, or I should actually clarify, not anywhere near half the women, but only women who live in certain states who happen to not have the financial or social means to be able to go to another state as middle class and upper middle class and beyond women will easily be able to do. I am excited to see this incontrovertible legal quality proof. So, to be eligible to win the $1 million, I will let you know that terms and conditions do apply. You're welcome to comment directly on this podcast episode with a link to this remarkable proof. You will not automatically be entitled to the $1 million if you personally believe that this is incontrovertible proof. Hope everyone has a nice day, except for Amy Coney Barrett, Clarence Thomas, Donald Trump, Brett Kavanaugh, and Samuel Alito. And I feel like there's someone else I'm leaving off. But I hope all the rest of you have a really nice day. To get more information on What the Fuck Just Happened, to get updates on when the book launches, download Grief Bingo, and more, go to WTFJustHappened.net, check us out, and subscribe to our newsletter. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. It makes such a difference, especially for a new podcast like this one. And if you've had any crazy what the fucks yourself, have any questions, feedback, or just want to say hi, reach out either on Instagram at WTF_just_happened_ or email me at hello@WTFJustHappened.net. And remember, you don't have to draw any final conclusions as you wonder, what the fuck just happened?